Welcome to Secured by Design, the podcast where we explore how identity and wider cybersecurity shape the foundation of our digital world. I am Santosh, and in every episode, I'll share insights and practical perspectives on how we can build security into every layer of technology and business. From identity governance and zero trust to the latest in cloud and compliance. Let's dive into what it takes to design security that lasts. Before we jump in, I wanted to ask a quick favor. I decided to start recording without getting lost in any gear paralysis. So I'm using a simple setup for now. I'd love to know what you think about the audio quality. Just let me know if it sounds clear to you. If this podcast finds its audience, a professional quality studio mic is definitely on the list. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into the episode. As this is the very first episode of the podcast, I thought what best it could be than diving into a phrase that's thrown around in every boardroom and security conferences these days. Secured by design. But here's the thing. After more than 2 decades in IT, majority of it working on identity security solutions across multiple organizations, I've learned that most people don't really understand what this means. And more importantly, many don't realize how identity has become the absolute foundation of modern security. So today, let's strip away the buzzwords and talk about what secured by design actually look like when you put identity at the core. And I promise, this is no death by PowerPoint. Well, there isn't any for a start. Just real stories from the trenches. Let me start with what goes wrong when identity isn't the foundation of security. Insider threats and orphaned accounts represent one of the biggest security risks organizations face today. Research shows that insider incidents impact over 34% of businesses worldwide annually, with attacks on company databases often executed by current or former employees who retain access they shouldn't have. Particularly in the healthcare sector, a recent survey found that around 79% of organizations have more than 1,000 plus orphaned accounts. These are user accounts that remain active even after employees leave or change roles. Think about what this means. An intern finishes their summer program, goes back to school, but their access remains active for months. A contractor's assignment ends, but nobody disables their VPN credentials. According to 2019 Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report, 62% of all data breaches involved the use of stolen credentials, with nearly half directly attributed to stolen credentials from accounts like these. This is what I call security as an afterthought. You build the application, you deploy it, you open it out to the network, and then someone says, we should probably add some authentication. So you bolt on a login page, maybe add some role-based access control if you're feeling fancy, and call it a day. The problem? Identity becomes this separate thing you manage in parallel, not the foundation everything is built on. Let me give you another example, one that's probably happening at your organization right now. A developer needs access to a production system to fix a critical bug. It's 2 a.m. The normal approval process would take between 12 to 48 hours. What do you think happens? In most organizations, someone with an admin privilege just creates the account manually, bypasses the approval workflow, and promises to clean it up later. But that later never comes. That account sits there, often with excessive privileges, no expiration date, and no monitoring. Industry surveys show that 42% of organizations don't even know how many orphan accounts they have, and 30% don't have a procedure in place to locate them. Why does this happen? Because security was bolted on. The system wasn't designed with identity governance at its core. So what does secured by design actually mean, especially through an identity lens? It means that before you write a single line of code, before you architect a single microservice, you answer these fundamental questions. Who should be allowed to access the system? What should they be able to do? When should their access expire? Why do they need this access? And how will we prove that they did what we think they did? Did you notice that I didn't start with what firewall rules do we need? That's because identity comes first. Let me paint a picture of what this looks like in practice with a real world example. Let's take the example of a healthcare organization building a new patient portal. Let's see how different it would be if they take an identity first approach. Traditionally, they would have built the portal, added authentication module in it, and integrate with, say, Active Directory or some other enterprise directory, and that's job done. In an identity first approach, this works differently. Before writing any application code, the organization first maps out every identity type: patients, doctors, nurses, admin staff, third-party specialists, and any other distinct user types that would interface with this system. Second, define the identity lifecycle for each user type. For example, a patient's journey starts with registration. A doctor's journey involves credential verification, onboarding, privilege assignments, and regular recertification. A contract nurse working a 26-week assignment needs automatic deprovisioning, things like these. Thirdly, they build the identity infrastructure first. This means implementing a modern IAM platform that can automatically provision accounts based on HR data, enforce least privilege by default, require periodic access reviews, provide emergency access with full audit trails, integrate with PAM solutions for privileged operations, and all. Then, and only then, build the portal itself. And here's the beautiful part. When launched properly, there are no default admin passwords to change, no hard-coded credentials, no backdoor accounts. Every access is traced to real identity. Every privilege has a business justification. Every session is monitored. A real test? We all know healthcare is a common target for phishing attacks. So it's quite possible that with all prevention, there is a high chance that some poor nurse gets fished for not paying enough attention while juggling her patient duty. When the nurse's credential gets phished, attackers try to access patient records. But with identity-first security, the system can immediately flag anomalous behavior because the identity context does not match. Wrong location, wrong time, etc. The session gets terminated, the account locked, and security alerted, all automatically. That's secured by design. The security was an adder on top. It was built into the foundation through identity. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds great, but how do we actually make this shift? Because let's be honest, most organizations are sitting on decades of technical debt. You can't just rip everything out and start over. Let me share how one organization made this transition. A manufacturing company, let's call them Global Equipments, had a typical mess. 15 different authentication systems, no central identity store, administrators who still shared passwords for critical systems. They knew they needed to change, but where do you even start? They began with something simple but powerful: visibility. They deployed an IGA solution to discover all identities across all systems, and what they found was eye-opening. That 3,500 active employees, but 8,200 active accounts. 740 accounts belonging to people who left the company. 200 shared accounts with administrative privileges. No idea who had access to what or why. This visibility became their baseline. You can't secure what you can't see. Phase 2 was establishing a single source of truth for identity. They didn't rip out all their systems. That would take years. Instead, they implemented an identity hub that became the authoritative source for who exists in the organization. HR systems feed it, everything else reads from it. Phase 3 was automating the joiner mover lever process. Every new hire automatically gets provisioned to the right systems on day one. Every termination automatically triggers deprovisioning across all systems within, say, around 15 to 30 minutes. No more manual tickets, no more forgotten accounts. But here's where it gets interesting: the cultural shift. They now started measuring new metrics. Time to provision new accounts went from 3 days to under 24 hours. Percentage of orphaned accounts went from 15% to under 1%. Access review completion rates went from 60% to 92%. And time to remediate access violations went from weeks to under 24 hours. These metrics changed conversations from the C-suite. Security wasn't just a cost center anymore. It was enabling business velocity. New employees were productive on day one. Contractors could be onboarded in hours, not weeks. And risk was measurably decreasing. The mindset shift is profound. Instead of asking, how do we secure this application, they started asking, who needs access to this capability and how do we manage their identity lifecycle? It's a subtle difference in language, but it completely changes how you design systems. So let's bring this home. What does secured by design really mean in 2025? It means recognizing that identity is the new perimeter. Your users are everywhere, working from home, in coffee shops, and across continents. Your applications are in the cloud, in multiple clouds, on-premise, in SaaS platforms. The network perimeter is dead. But identity? Identity is constant. Whether someone is accessing a system from the office or from a beach in Bali, their identity travels with them. And if you have built your security foundations on identity, like strong authentication, proper authorization, dynamic privilege management, continuous verification, you can secure their access regardless of where it's happening. The organizations that get this right are the ones that think about identity before they think about applications. Automate the identity lifecycle from day one. Treat every access decisions as an identity question. Measure the security posture through identity metrics. And here's the business case that gets executives listening. Identity first security doesn't just reduce risk, it enables business velocity. Secure onboarding, faster provisioning, compliant access, reduced audit overhead. You're just not preventing breaches, you're enabling innovation. My challenge to you, the next time you're in a meeting about a new project, a new application, or a new initiative, ask these questions first. Who will use this? How will we manage their identity lifecycle? How will we prove who did what? If you can't answer those questions, you are not secured by design. You're just bolting security on and hoping for the best. Thanks for listening to Secured by Design. If today's episode gave you something to think about, subscribe and follow on your favorite streaming platform for more discussions on identity and cybersecurity. Please feel free to share it with your team. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn for updates and new episode releases. And remember, security doesn't start with firewalls. It starts with the identity. Until next time, stay secure, stay resilient, and stay secure by design.